Hello, hi. We've survived January, one of the dullest months, especially if you're up north like I am. It's cold, people have gotten burnt out from all the New Year's goals they've set up, and for the most part, there's nowhere to go. I've always considered the first half of the year hibernation season where nothing insanely exciting happens. Instead, it's time for self-care and self-progress, finishing up any home projects and goals that you might have. At least that's how I've spent it. And now that February has arrived, society likes to focus on two things. One is the capitalistic focus on love with Valentine's Day. The other focus of the month is with Black History Month. And although extremely important and a topic that should definitely stay in the highlights, as you can see by my skin color, I am pale and white as shit and therefore would have nothing to contribute to the conversation. So we're focusing on love. Years ago, I saved this list from Tumblr that had all these ideas on how to embrace February and Valentine's and love. And I wanted to do that throughout the month as a video idea. But I've deleted that list since then and have no recollection what was on it. In fact, I logged back onto my account, which I have not used in literal years, just to see if I could find it again. But instead, I was greeted by so many Tom Hiddleston pictures and gifs, which I saved back then. I have adored and admired this man for over a decade, and all of these saved posts really show how deep the admiration went and still does. I'm so grateful I got to meet him briefly, and he is kind and beautiful and so tall, but one of the most handsome and breathtakingly beautiful men I've ever seen in my life. Like, he is a literal god. You can see nothing has changed. Unfortunately, he is now a married man, so therefore I have lost my chance at that. I miss when Tumblr was good, before Yahoo ruined it. That's when I stopped using it, like most people. Like, why? How is any of this inappropriate, Yahoo? Why? Anyways, I did not find that list, so instead we're gonna make our own little simple, realistic one instead. Yes, it's true that I've been very, very unlucky in love, but I haven't given up, and instead that's part of why I'm making this video. Ironically, it also goes back to a Tumblr post that I posted years ago. And even now, that Jones soda cap, you've been wrong so far. And I found that decades ago. I know it's so important to be embracing in the idea of love, especially self-love. And hopefully, if I cover myself in enough rose quartz, Aphrodite, Eros, Freya, and Venus will grant me an amazing partner, please. Tom Hiddleston may be taken, but I'm still hoping that Christian Borle may be single. Yes, I know I have a type. Let us discuss love. Let us discuss the idea of love and Valentine's and the history of it. I actually learned about the history recently when I was doing research for this video, and it's awful. It's terrible. It used to be pagan, and they sacrificed goats and dogs, which is very terrible and sad. While I was scrolling through my Tumblr post, I did end up finding a different list, although not the one I was looking for. And you can tell it's old since it does reference a lot of shows that aren't relevant anymore. I figured I'd go through and put their and my ideas together. First thing I can agree on is to eat all the chocolate, although that is a daily thing for me. I'll also add on to make all the treats, either store-bought like I grabbed, or you can search so many yummy recipes all over the internet. I've seen so many treats that are specifically catered to Valentine's, and I really do adore how they look. Also, feed pasta to your crush while complimenting their muscles. Did a 12-year-old write this? Listen, Christian Borle has amazing arms, but I also know from the few interviews that I watched that he's very uncomfortable by it.
The first choice Google gives you is Christian Borle arms. Yeah. What?
People are literally going crazy about your body. Did you know this? There's like a Twitter handle devoted to your physique.
My arms.
Also, they don't feature any movies besides He's Just Not That Into You, so let's deep dive into all of my love movie recommendations. Starting off with some of my favorite films of all time, I've definitely been influenced by old Hollywood and Broadway, and it's clearly a big part of my aesthetic. Very few things can top Singing in the Rain. Queen Debbie Reynolds, it's one of her greatest roles, and obviously she herself is a small inspiration to me. I baked a cake for her after all. Link in the description if you want to see me fail at that. I constantly go back and watch this film often. It has such a sweet enemies to lovers love story, and the dance movies are astonishing every single time. The music is fantastic. I could go on. It's such a wonderful film to watch any time of year, but definitely a great one during the season of love too. Next up is more classic musicals that I adore, Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. Once again, just showing how much influence old Hollywood holds on me. Marilyn is another one of my queens and is another giant inspiration of mine. This was another film that I constantly watched throughout high school, and it's just so light and fun, and also filled with so many more amazing songs. You see the pattern we're going with here. I loved it back when I was 15, and even though I'm older now, nothing has changed. This is a vibe I constantly want to be going for. One more Marilyn film to highlight, and one of my more recent obsessions is Some Like It Hot. I watched this film also during high school and knew I loved it, but didn't put it on for years until last year when I rediscovered it because of the musical adaptations that happened on Broadway. I fell into loving that show hard, literally one of the reasons why I adore Christian Borle now, and I'm so happy that love was able to fuse together back with the original movie. They did such a wonderful job sticking to the original source material but freshening it up in such a modern and more understanding way. The movie is so much fun and also filled with some sexy romance in that clean 50s sort of way, and it's such a wonderful watch still, although I am much more biased to Broadway musical now. That's the one remake I would be happy with because it got cut on Broadway way too soon and deserves so much more recognition. Switching to one more classic film that really shaped my life is Breakfast at Tiffany's. Wow, it's not a musical, I know, shocking. Classic Hollywood in general was one of my hyperfixations when I was a teenager, so I tried to watch it all. And yes, Aubrey is clearly another important influence and another queen to me. Outside of the crazy racism where Mickey Rooney played an Asian man, it's a beautiful, sweet, quirky, classic love story and definitely a must-watch for February. Moving on into some more modern territory is Connie and Carla. I honestly don't know how popular it is, but I feel like it's probably more obscure. It's one of the first pieces of media I saw that heavily featured drag queens, and it's such a fun and beautiful way, and I clearly fell in love. This is such a fun, wonderful, campy film that makes you feel so good after watching it. There's a cute little love story. It's filled with so much fun comedy and action, and of course, more Broadway songs. So it clearly fits into the pattern, but I promise I like films that aren't all musicals. Amelie is a perfect example of that. Although it got turned into a Broadway musical in the last decade, ironically, but I haven't seen it or listened to any of the music. Instead, I first watched this film in a college cinema course, and it was so creative and innovative, and clearly stayed on my mind since then. It's French, so if you don't know that language like me, you gotta put the subtitles on, but it's so worth it. I don't want to spoil this one because it's so creative and unique, but please give it a watch. Next up is the most risque and obscure film on my list, Short Bus. It's written and directed by John Cameron Mitchell, who directed, wrote, and starred in my favorite film of all time. Yes, another musical, but it's edgy. Hedwig and the Angry Inch. Short Bus features a group of New Yorkers as they navigate their lives in a post-9/11 world, and it's a very, very uncensored love story. It's filled with sex and lust in every way possible, but it's truly about the connections and emotions these characters have with each other. Plus, it has one of the best soundtracks I've ever listened to. I know, all the mainstream movies I love all circle around music, and this next one is a part of that, Begin Again. For such a star-studded cast, I feel like this was another underrated treasure. When I first saw it, I thought it would just be a cute little film, but I was clearly blown away. It focuses on two different people played by Mark Ruffalo and Keira Knightley coming together and building a very sweet and genuine friendship as their respective lives are completely changed. It's so rare that the two main characters are male and female, and they just stay friends and don't end up romantically together. And I give it so much respect for that. And yes, it's focused on creating an album and therefore centered around music, but once again, the soundtrack is amazing and some of the best original songs I've ever heard. I do promise I love films that aren't all musicals, and although this one is also very music heavy as well since he's a rock star, it's not the main focus. I'm sure you're questioning why Queen of the Damned is on this romance list, but what's truly sexier than real vampires? Not that Twilight shit, I mean, come on. Who wouldn't want this? In my opinion, this is so much more sexier than 50 Shades of Grey, for example, and a perfect film recommendation for those that want to celebrate Valentine's Halloween. I also used to have a crush on him back when I was younger, so I understand that I do have a lot of issues. Anyways, if you want a lighter, fun vampire film, then I recommend Once Bitten. It's an 80s comedy starring Jim Carrey as a vampire. Do I need to explain more? 80s comedies and films as a whole are on a completely different level, and this one is just filled with so much fun, cheeky vibes. Plus, it's fun seeing a woman as a vampire going after the guy for a change. You don't see it too often. What can I say? Vampires just make me happy and I love them so much. One last film recommendation in total, Only Lovers Left Alive. It stars Tilda Swinton and Tom Hiddleston as a vampire. Again, do I need to say any more? He's so beautiful and brooding, and this is the most serious of the films on the list, but still such a great watch, especially if you want something more focused on dark romance. The use of vampires in this film aren't the main focus, and instead they're used more as a metaphor when it comes to emotions and love in general. Anyways, back to the old Tumblr list I found. Most of the stuff is irrelevant now, or just extremely simple things like wearing a push-up bra. Most people do that as an everyday thing. I do like the recommendation to watch Girls. It's an awful show, but I did go back and watch the entire series once I found out that Adam Driver was in it. Yes, I know I have a type, I know. An easy one, light a candle. Okay, done. That's also something I do most days, but I will agree that it does help make your environment and atmosphere more cozy. Just make sure to safely light it and blow it out so there's no fires that happen. Drink some nice wine or tea. I prefer tea over wine, but both work. Cast a love spell, that's something I can definitely get on board with. Make sure to get consent first or just do some self-love spells. I'm still a beginner when it comes to anything with witchcraft, but I know that Fridays are the best day for any love spells since it's Freya's day. One more thing that I would add is to take a nice warm bath. I know not everyone has access to baths, but if you do, it's such a relaxing and could be a romantic way to unwind and chill out and give yourself a lot of self-care. I like to use bath salts. Obviously, it's not sponsored, but this is a small company that I love that's based in New Jersey. Witch Baby. All of their products are infused with all of that positive witchy stuff that I love, hence the name. And it's nice to use a good bath bomb too. There's so many options that you can do. Once you're in the bath, wine is optional, but also reading a nice romance book or listening to some love songs, the choices are endless. I propose a toast to better times, better vibes. If you are in a happy, healthy relationship, wonderful, I am happy for you. And if you're not, it's okay because you're part of the club like I am, and we will find our people sooner, hopefully, than later. I am still on the hunt for a much better list because for me, I feel like there's nothing to do except for the normal self-care stuff that we covered that is very important to do no matter what time of year it is. But of course, I would love to have a Valentine again. I have had a few in the past which I'm grateful for. Last year, I had a cute little Valentine, which was a nice surprise, and he ended up surprising me while I was working because it was a random work day, and delivered a Nutella crepe with bananas and a chai tea latte, which is one of my favorite drinks ever. And so it was very sweet and I really did appreciate that. Like I said, it's important to really not be bitter, even though I am from time to time, and appreciate the love that you have for friends and family and pets, because that's important. Pets are the greatest thing, and I adore my dog, and he literally makes me so happy, and he's adorable and gives me hugs all the time. So that's a win, and I love him. We're gonna keep positive vibes and just do all the spells. Do all the love spells, the self-love spells. That is one thing that I'm constantly learning, is to love myself more and to appreciate self-love and self-care. I am excited to keep on embracing the idea of love, and hopefully next year I'll be able to have an awesome partner that I can do cute little dates with, and it'll be a lot more exciting. Fingers crossed. But until then, I'm gonna go burn some rose petals, and I'll see you in the next one.